What's up, everybody? Eric here from That's Wrestling. If you'd like to shoot me a question, comment, feedback, discussion topic, suggestion, you can send me an email, eric@thatswrestling.com. If you'd like to get this show as a podcast, if you're listening over on YouTube, you can get that on all your favorite podcast directories: Apple, Google, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, whole bunch of other ones too. So you can check that out there. If you cannot find it on your favorite app, you can go to thatswrestling.com to pick up the RSS feed over there. So this show is focused on non-WWE stuff, but the primary focus is on New Japan and AEW. So today we are going to talk about the New Japan show, Destruction in Kobe. This is actually a really good show. There was quite a few good matches, and a lot of story has gotten pushed, setting up for some big matches coming up in the future. So let's just get into it. So starting off, there was the Lions Cup. There's a few Lions Cup matches, and then there is a Bullet Club Chaos tag that really nothing came out of. The commentary team for this show for English was Kevin Kelly, Gino Gambino, and Chris Charlton. He hasn't been on the shows lately, so it's nice to see him back. He adds a lot of the translation, and he seems to he knows a lot of statistics that definitely come up. So it was nice to hear him. Big fan. Going into the first match here that had at least some sort of consequence or some storyline reason to happen was Suzuki-gun. So it was Suzuki, Zack Sabre Jr., Doki Kanemaru versus Rocky Romero, Tiger Mask, Yushin Thunder Liger, and Hiroshi Tanahashi. So going into this, Suzuki and Liger have been going after each other as of late, going back and forth. Suzuki tore off Liger's mask the previous weekend at Kagoshima. So Suzuki has really been begging is probably the wrong term, more like taunting Liger into having a match with him. And a lot of this stems from some of their previous encounters. They had an MMA match, a legit MMA match years ago. So they've just been all over each other. So this match didn't even start as Suzuki was coming down the ramp. Liger attacks him from behind. Then it's just a huge brawl on the outside and on the ramp. Tanahashi and Zack Sabre Jr. kind of pair up on the outside as well, since Zack Sabre Jr. took the Rev Pro British Championship off of Tanahashi the week before, who had then taken it off of Zack 2 weeks before that. So that one's been passed back and forth a little bit. Suzuki ends up grabbing a chair and hits Liger with it, and then he pulls a table out from underneath the ring, throws that in the ring, throws a chair into the ring, and Suzuki sets up the table kind of leaned up in the corner. Suzuki then hits the ref with a chair, and then he cracks Liger over the head with the chair, and the seat pops out. So it wasn't like a normal steel folding chair that you see. Kind of in Japan, they tend to have ones that are more multi-pieced. So the seat is kind of like attached to a frame. So the actual seat part flew out. So I would say they probably had gimmicked that, so it wasn't actually, tight screwed in there or anything. So it would pop out. So it wasn't like a crazy unprotected hair shot or anything. The seat just popped out. Suzuki starts to untie Liger's mask, and then Suzuki tries to choke out Liger, and then Liger gives him a low blow, back kick. But then Liger takes off his own mask to reveal Kishin Liger. So he's all painted up in face paint. Liger has just gone crazy. Then he gives the mist to Suzuki and then the ref. And then he grabs this huge spike, which is actually used to tighten the turnbuckles, because they have that huge kind of oval-shaped tensioner type nut. I don't even know what to call it. But anyways, they have this huge kind of bar spike thing that they use to turn those down. So he ends up grabbing this thing. Suzuki is leaned up against that table in the corner, and Kishin Liger just starts running at him with a spike, and then Suzuki moves out of the way at the last second, and Kishin Liger drives the spike through the table. So it is like completely buried into the table there. And then Suzuki rolls to the outside and starts to leave. Kishin Liger throws the table out of the ring, kind of like at Suzuki, but he moves out of the way. Kishin Liger starts following Suzuki, and he grabs a chair. He takes out a bunch of young lions on the way, and then he even hits Tanahashi with the chair while he's chasing down Suzuki. So Yushin Thunder Liger has revealed himself to be Kishin Liger, and this is going to be very interesting. It's kind of like the crazy sadistic side of Yushin Thunder Liger, so it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of that. If you'd like to see a history of Kishin Liger, there is a great article up right now on NJPW1972.com. There's an article up there, gives them like the full history of the character of Kishin Liger. So go check that out if you're interested. So this match, like I said, I don't think actually ever started, and if it did, it just was thrown out anyway. So this was a no contest in the end, but it is going to be very interesting. So we didn't know until a couple days later, so I'm kind of glad I'm recording this a couple days late, is now there is a match set up between Yushin Liger and Suzuki at King of Pro Wrestling. So right now they do have it listed as Yushin Thunder Liger. So I'm curious if he's going to come out as Yushin Liger or if we are going to see Kishin Liger. I don't know how it's going to go. I think the best way to do this is Yushin Thunder Liger comes out, they have the match, and then I think that Suzuki should win that match at King of Pro Wrestling, which then brings Kishin Liger back out, and that is the match that you have at Wrestle Kingdom to put an end to Liger in general, and that will be his retirement match at Wrestle Kingdom. So it'll be Kishin Liger versus Minoru Suzuki for Liger's final match at Wrestle Kingdom. So, and then I think Kishin Liger should probably just destroy Suzuki on the way out. It's not your typical ending for a retirement. Most wrestlers want to retire going out on their back. I think in this case, Suzuki, it's not like Suzuki needs the rub. So Liger could just, completely run roughshod over him and just kind of destroy him. So that's what came out of that match. Looking forward to see what comes of that. The next match was a Chaos faction against Bullet Club. It was Sho, Ospreay, Yoshihashi, and Ishii, and against El Phantasmo, Taiji Ishimori, Tongaloa, Tama Tonga, and Kenta. So going into this, Yo had pinned Tama Tonga in Kagoshima during another multi-man match. El Phantasmo is going to be facing Will Ospreay at the for the junior heavyweight title at King of Pro Wrestling, and God beat Ishii and Yoshihashi with interference from Kenta in their matchup for the titles. So this match starts off. We have Ishii and Tongaloa. They try to get shoulder tackles on each other, and then the match just breaks down into a massive brawl. Eventually, once it gets under the control, the Bullet Club team all take turns working Yoshihashi, and then Will Ospreay and El Phantasmo eventually get in. They have an exchange, tons of fast-paced action. Ospreay hits a huge dive. God hit Guerrilla Warfare on Yo, but Yoshihashi ends up breaking up the pin there. Sho gets into the ring to help out Yo, and it looks like they're going to hit Magic Killer, but Sho does like a mule kick, and then he ends up over to Yo, who was kind of like behind Tama Tonga. So Tama Tonga gets mule kicked over to Yo, and then Yo gets the pin on Tama Tonga once again. He is completely furious. After the match, God destroy Yo and Sho. Tonga Loa hits him with ape shit, and then Tama Tonga beats Sho with a kendo stick. And then as Tonga Loa is holding holding his arms behind him, Tama Tonga hits him with a kendo stick across the stomach. So Roppongi 3K has once again got a pin over one of the IWGP heavyweight tag champions. So again, like the previous match, it hadn't been set up yet, so I'm kind of glad I am recording a couple days late. So I had questions. So does this mean Roppongi 3K are going to be looking for heavyweight tag gold? And it looks like yes, they are. So they are scheduled to have a tag title match on Friday, September 27th. So that is tomorrow at the show in Lowell, Mass, which I actually have tickets to. So I will be there in person. This show, as far as I can tell, is not being recorded, or it is at least not on the schedule for NJPW World. So I don't know if it's going to be a video on demand in the future, or if it's even going to be recorded at all. The only one that's currently listed, they have 3 shows in America. The only one that is currently listed to being on NJPW World is the show on the 28th in New York City at the Hammerstein Ballroom. So I don't know if the Massachusetts show or the Pennsylvania show are going to be on New Japan World at all. I'm guessing because there's nothing look like they are going to be videotaping, I don't expect the title to change, but it should be a good match nonetheless. So that is what's coming out of that match. So we have Roppongi 3K versus Gorillas of Destiny at the Lowell, Massachusetts show tomorrow on the 27th. So I'm looking forward to that because I'm going to be there. So the next match we had Robbie Eagles, Kota Ibushi, and Kazuchika Okada versus an LIJ faction of Bushi, Evil, and Sonata. So we have quite a lot of story going into this one too. We have Evil beat Ibushi at the G1, so there's a challenge for the contract by Evil to Ibushi. That is going to be happening at King of Pro Wrestling. Also, we have Sonata is the next challenger to the heavyweight title since he beat Okada during the G1. That match is happening at King of Pro Wrestling as well. So we have quite a big card coming up for King of Pro Wrestling. I'll go over that in more detail at the end of this review. So Ibushi came out holding just the contract folder because Kenta had destroyed the briefcase the previous week. Don't know why they couldn't get another briefcase or anything, but that was the case. He was just holding kind of a folder with the contract in it. After ring introductions, Okada wants Sonata, so they actually start off the match. The crowd really seems to be half and half on this one. They do a bit of showboating, and they're both trying to get the crowd to cheer for them, but it is really a split crowd. They just do a lot of crowd work and not a whole lot of wrestling right at the beginning. So after kind of a little bit of an exchange, Robbie Eagles and Bushi get tagged in. They have a short exchange, and then the other members of LIJ come in, hit Eagles with various stuff, and then Sonata throws Okada into the railing on the outside. So Sonata had kind of like attacked Eagle, rolled to the outside, and then pulled Okada through or off the apron and whatnot. Ishii throws Ibushi into the railing on the outside as well, so he kind of did the same thing. All of the members of LIJ start rotating tags and working over Eagles pretty good. Eventually, Eagles gets some strikes in on Evil while he's in, and then gets a tag to Ibushi. After they have a bit of a short exchange, again, the other 2 members come in from LIJ, but in this instance, Ibushi ends up taking care of them both with kind of a backflip double kick, and Evil and Ibushi go back and forth a bit, and then we have a dual tag. So Sonata and Okada get tagged in. They have a back and forth. Eagles gets tagged back in. He starts working over Sanada. He hits a huge missile drop kick off the top rope to Sanada's knee, hits him with a bunch of chest kicks, kick to the leg, and then he does a forearm to the back of the head, and then hits him with double knees in the corner, and then he actually hits him with a 619 to Sanada's knee, and then hits another double knee in the corner until Evil and Bushi get involved, and then Ibushi breaks up a pin attempt right there. Then Evil gives him a devastating suplex. Sanada gets Evil into the skull end and starts kind of swinging him around. And this is kind of where something interesting happened that plays out into what happens after the match. So Sanada has Eagles in the skull end. He's kind of swinging him around, and then Okada comes in and he attempts to hit a drop kick, but he misses by a mile. Luckily, Sanada no-sold it, so he didn't accidentally sell a massively phantom strike. So that was good right there. But Sanada did keep swinging Eagles. Okada popped right back up the second he hit the ground, and then he hit the drop kick again and actually got it that time. Okada then gets sent out to the outside. Bushi hits him with this high-speed dive through the ropes, and then Sanada gets Eagle back into skull end, and he gets the submission for the win. So what I was talking about with that drop kick, that missed drop kick that Okada had really kind of played in to what happened afterwards. So I would say this is clearly a botch, but then after the match, Okada and Sanada are facing off in the ring, and then you also had Ibushi and Evil kind of facing off as well. And I knew it was going to happen because I actually had heard on another podcast what actually happened. But so I was paying a little bit more attention. So Okada and Sanada are doing a bit of jaw jacking, but you can't hear that. You wouldn't be able to hear what they were saying. And I don't speak Japanese, so I wouldn't know what they were saying anyways. But during that, I'm pretty sure Okada was setting up what was going to happen next. And the genius of Okada and his quick thinking. So they're staring off, and then Okada attempts to go for a drop kick while they're, standing off right there. But Sanada swats him away. He goes for another drop kick, and Sanada swats him away. Goes for another drop kick, and Sanada swats him away. So it sounds like they're going to be setting up this thing that Sanada is too quick for Okada to hit a drop kick on, and they're kind of setting up this story that I'm guessing this is going to play into their match at King of Pro Wrestling. So I love this. It's just kind of like on the fly setup and booking. And this is definitely the mark of a true professional who can do this stuff on the fly and just be making an accident into something that is going to probably play a big part in their next match and add suspense. So very cool. But yeah, I was watching them, and they're definitely talking for a little bit longer than you would expect them. But I knew that it looked like they were going to set this up. So that's how it went, but very cool. And this is one of those things that's like, you couldn't write this, but it's going to be a big deal. And it was off of a spur of the moment event. And it's just genius. So, we're going to see that match at King of Pro Wrestling. Also, Evil and Ibushi had a quick striking exchange as well after the match, but they disengaged on that. So that match from Evil and Ibushi are going to be facing each other at King of Pro Wrestling for the contract to face the champion at Wrestle Kingdom. So that will be coming up as well. The second to last match we have Hirooki Goto versus Shingo Takagi. This is a grudge match from the G1 since Goto lost to Shingo Takagi during the G1. And he didn't take too kindly from losing to a junior heavyweight, or someone had just moved up from junior heavyweight. So this was actually a excellent match, a very fun match. The beginning of the match started off with a striking exchange, a bit of chain wrestling. They also exchanged some shoulder tackles. The crowd was actually pretty quiet for the beginning of this match. It was just something that I noticed. They go to the outside, and Shingo sends Goto into the railing, and then he drops him on the apron, then does a DDT on the floor. Red Shoes starts a 20 count, but Shingo just rolls Goto back into the ring. He wants to win in the ring. Shingo remains in control for quite some time, and then he kind of like starts showboating and toying with Goto a little bit, and then Goto hits him with a huge clothesline, but the momentum swing doesn't last very long. Goto, in desperation, hits Shingo with a vicious neckbreaker by pulling him. He kind of like pulled him by the hair backwards and then ran his neck over his knee. So it was really, it looked like that was not fun at all. But even then, Shingo ends up still in control. Goto hits another desperation move and he hits a suplex. And both men are slow to get up at that point. They start they start doing a striking exchange where they're both basically hitting double lariats on each other. And then Shingo hits Goto with a Made in Japan. He gets 1, 2, and then a kick out. Goto kicks out of the move that put him away in the G1. So we have a little bit of story callback right there. They go into a short striking exchange. Goto hits the Ushigoroshi, and then the momentum turns at that point. Goto starts hitting some hard chest kicks on Shingo. Shingo catches one and puts Goto on the second rope, and then he kind of hits him with an assisted GTR. So he hits Goto with his own move. He pulls Goto back onto his feet, and he ends up hitting a pumping bomber for a 2 count. Shingo gets Goto up onto his shoulders for Last of the Dragon, but then it's reversed by Goto, and he hits a Shoten Kai, but is unable to cover Shingo. So both of them get back to their feet. Goto gets back to his feet first, and he gets a heavy PK in. And then they exchange headbutts, which looked vicious, and I do not suggest that they do that because we don't want to see anybody else with a head injury. Goto hits a modified Shoten Kai, and then he gets a 2 count on that. He drags Shingo up and then hits him with the GTR to pick up the win. So this was, like I said, this was a very great match, but Goto picks up the win with the GTR, so he kind of gets his revenge over Shingo Takagi from his G1 loss. Definitely check out this match if you have not seen it yet. So going into the final match here, we have for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship, we have Tetsuya Naito versus Jay White with Gato in the corner. Jay White got a win over Naito in the G1, so that's kind of what's setting up this match. They have been taunting each other for weeks now during the Road to Destruction shows and on the other Destruction shows as well. They start off right out the gate with taunting, and then they just kind of get into some just various locks, some headlocks and chin locks and whatnot, and then some more taunting. Then they jaw jack for a bit. Naito gets a bunch of roll-ups and frustrates White, even though they're just 1 counts and 2 counts. Naito messes with White for a bit, and the taunting continues. Naito gets thrown to the turnbuckle, and Gato ends up grabbing onto his leg. White kind of slides out from the ring from underneath, and he grabs onto Naito's legs, and then he pulls him back into the rope, into the post, and crotches him in the on the post, and then he starts working him over on the outside, throwing him into the railing, and then they get back into the ring where White continues to dominate. They get back to the outside again. White slams Naito into the railing 3 times and then throws him back into the ring and goes for a cover, but Red Shoes refuses to count it because he saw what happened on the outside. This is one of the things that kind of bug me a little bit. It's like, why can you use all these other things? Like, if you're throwing somebody into something, then it's cool. But if you are actually physically hitting somebody with something, then it's a I don't know. It's one of those weird things that New Japan is a little bit more laxed on the DQs, and you don't see many DQ finishes, even though there are clear violations of what are the typical rules of wrestling. Anyways, so White goes back to work. He traps Naito in the ropes and then gives him a running uppercut and then a draping DDT. After a long while, Naito hits a desperation drop kick and then hits him with a huge pop-up spine buster and then a draping neck breaker on the ropes, and then he hits him with a Super Rana on the top rope. He hits Gloria and then hits a nice wrecking ball drop kick on the outside with White is kind of sitting on the apron. He does a drop kick kind of over the top rope. They fight on the apron, and White pulls Naito face first down onto the apron. Then he tries to go for a deadlift suplex on the apron, but Naito gets out of it. But White still manages to pull him backwards by his hair onto the apron. White goes for a pile driver on the apron onto Naito, but Naito then just backdrops Jay White onto the apron. White then hits an apron bomb on Naito, and then they finally get back into the ring again. White hits a huge Uranagi. Then White goes for a Kiwi Crusher, but Naito reverses it into a DDT. Both men are down, and then they both get up, get into a bit of a striking exchange, but Naito gets the upper hand. But Jay White then pulls the ref down, and Goto hits Naito with a chair behind the ref's back. White then hits the Kiwi Crusher, but only gets, Kiwi Crush. Yeah, Kiwi Crusher. And then it only gets a 2 count there. He goes for Blade Runner, but Naito gets out of it. Naito hits a kick and then a flying forearm off the ropes. Goto gets up onto the ropes, causing a bit of a distraction to Naito. Naito's kind of looking at him and yelling at him, and White comes up behind Naito, but Naito sees him at the last second. He grabs onto White, and he kind of runs up the front of Goto and gives White a swinging DDT. It was a pretty cool spot. Naito goes for Destino, but White counters it into a crucifix and drags him down to the ground and starts raining down elbows on him, but he manages to get out of it. They go back and forth trying to hit each other's finishers or their finishers on their opponents. Then Jay White hits 2 sleeper suplexes that look brutal as hell. Naito then hits a dragging suplex. Naito goes for Destino, and he kind of gets up and he's kind of trying to power through it, but he ends up hitting it barely. But then White kicks out at 2. They have a quick exchange, and then White quickly hits a Blade Runner and gets the 1, 2, 3. And Jay White is now the new IWGP Intercontinental Champion. After the match, White cuts a great promo after the match, mocking Naito, mocking his supporters. He names all of his Bullet Club brethren, and he says he single-handedly sold out Madison Square Garden, but of course we all know that's not true, so he's being a little bit of a self-indulgent heel, I guess you could say. He said that he is going to be the first dual champion, and he is calling out Okada and Sonata. He doesn't care which one he has to face. Of course, then Goto comes down to rain on his parade. Goto attacks White in the ring. Jay White leaves and says he's not going to stay around to hear what Goto has to say. Goto picks up the mic and says he doesn't plan on losing to that SOB since he beat him once already. He wants to do it again. So it sounds like everybody kind of wants to make history here and be the double champion. Jay White said it here. Ibushi also said it this night as well. So don't know how that's going to work out. I don't know how Jay White plans on getting a heavyweight championship match before Wrestle Kingdom, and I don't know how Ibushi plans to get IC championship match before Wrestle Kingdom. I guess we'll see how that plays out. I know there is one more big show after King of Pro Wrestling, though I'm totally Power Struggle. Power Struggle is the next big show after King of Pro Wrestling. So as far as shows coming up and what you should be looking out for, definitely King of Pro Wrestling is the next big show. That is on October 14th, coming from Japan. So the current lineup, I think they have their full card up now. So we're going to have Desperado is coming back to New Japan. So he's going to be in a 6-man tag with Kanemaru, Doki, El Desperado versus Taguchi, Yo, and Sho. Then we have Hiroshi Tanahashi is kind of on his 20th anniversary tour. So this will actually be his 4th match. He's having 3 other matches at the US shows. So this will be the 4th match in that series. And he's going to be teaming up with Hanma to face Toge Makabe and Toriano. And so that will be an interesting match to see. We also have looks like a Suzuki-gun versus, LIJ faction. So it's going to be Bushi, Shingo Takagi, Tetsuya Naito versus Taichi, Lance Archer, and Zack Sabre Jr. It's a little strange to see Naito kind of so far down the card on this show, but he did just lose the Intercontinental Championship, so unfortunately he moves down there. We got another match, which is going to be Bullet Club versus Chaos. So we got Yoshihashi, Ishii, and Goto versus Jay White, Kenta, and Takahashi. And then we have the match that I was talking about earlier. We have Yushin Thunder Liger versus Minoru Suzuki. So this match I am looking forward to. I'm curious how it's going to go. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to be Kishin Liger that we end up seeing and not Jushin Thunder Liger, but I guess we will find out on the 14th to see how that goes. Then we have a matchup that I think everybody is really excited for. This is going to be the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship match of Will Ospreay versus El Phantasmo. This is going to be one heck of a match. I think these two are both insane, and hopefully nobody dies during that match. Then we have a rematch. We have the IWGP US Heavyweight Championship match. It's going to be Jon Moxley and Juice Robinson in a no disqualification match. So this is definitely going to be one heck of a brawl. I'm guessing that Juice is probably going to win his championship back. I guess we will find out. Then we have the IWGP Heavyweight Championship Right to Challenge contract match. That is going to be Kota Ibushi versus Evil for the contract that Kota Ibushi won from the G1. And then the final match is going to be Kazuchika Okada versus Sonata for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. So Sonata, that is, beat Okada during the G1, though I am not sure if this is the time that they're going to hand over the belt to Sonata, especially going into Wrestle Kingdom. I think that they are going to want the match to be Okada versus Ibushi. So I don't see them changing that title. I also don't see them changing the contract. And as far as Will Ospreay versus El Phantasmo, I am not sure who's going to take that. I think Will Ospreay might win that one because I believe he did lose to El Phantasmo during the Super J Cup. So I think he might get his win back on that. So that's what we have coming up. Looking forward to for New Japan. So that is where I'm going to end it today. I will probably give a bit of a recap of what happens tomorrow in Lowell, Massachusetts, since I will be there. I don't expect anything massive to happen during that show, but at least it will be a good time had by at least me. So thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to get a hold of me, you can send me an email, eric@thatswrestling.com. If you would like the podcast version of this and you're watching on YouTube, you can find it in all your favorite podcast directories, Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, Google, or you can just go to thatswrestling.com to get the RSS feed over there. So that's going to do it for me. Thanks for listening to That's Wrestling.